Hi, I'm Michelle Johnston, and I'm an English teacher and assistant head teacher at Aylesford School in Kent. And I'm just here to talk to you about how we've been using Educake in our secondary school. So we signed up to Educake about a year ago. We did trials in science and in English. And from that, we were able to see that it was something that we really wanted to get involved in. So we have purchased it for all of our subjects. And all of those are now using Educate quite successfully in their departments. We mainly use it as a homework tool, but we have been using it on occasion in lessons and interventions and revision sessions as well, just to sort of support the curriculum and the learning of our students. We have found that it's much more effective than the other platforms that we'd used previously. We've used quite a lot across maths, English and science, but they weren't really meeting our needs, whereas Educate was so much easier to set up, to run, to manage the students yourselves without needing sort of the third-party support. And the English language in particular was covered much better in Educate than it had been in any other English platforms that we'd been using. So I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about some of the things that we found, just in case that helps you with your own setting up of Educate in your schools. So one of the things that obviously needs to be considered is how you get the students to engage. Regardless of how easy it is to set up the homework and to assign it, if the students aren't completing it, then that becomes kind of pointless. The first thing that we really like is the fact that you can print off students' usernames as a little label with lots of them on the page. It doesn't take much printing. You can then give that to the students or get them to take photos of those so that they can log on, the same day as soon as they get home. They don't have to spend ages setting up an account. It's all done for them. I uploaded the classes for all of our departments, for all of our classes across the whole school this term, and that took me moments. I literally just had to download that off Sims with the class names next to it, and I just sent that straight off, and that was all done. And that, Educate were able to set that all up for me straight away. So you don't have to sit in and add all the students to your class. However, you can add and delete individuals if there are changes that you want to make yourselves. As you can see on the left here, we've got a table here. This is our scoreboard at the moment for students that have taken part. So the names would be down the left-hand side, but I've had to take those off, obviously, for you guys. So you can see that we've got year 11s, 9s and 10s, certainly in the top percentages of our students using it. And you can see how many questions on the third column that those students have answered. So we use these to sort of log rewards for students. We share these figures with parents. We send a quick text message home, your students in the top 5 for completing Educake. But it is worth remembering, if you look on column 4, that you do need to look at the percentage as well. So this student here that's done 100 questions, they did set them all themselves. You can see that in the last column, but they have only got 25% correct. So you can't just automatically say, oh, well, that student's, done fantastically, because perhaps that 25% shows that they didn't really spend very much time on it, and they were just trying to get loads of questions done. And I've put that down the bottom here just to have a look. Some students might be working really hard. They might be completing loads of questions, but they're getting a low score. And then it's really quick and easy for us to see that actually this isn't because the kid isn't trying to do their homework or do their revision, that perhaps they need some extra support and intervention as well. So we share sort of league tables in assemblies, just a quick slide. And you could do that across subjects or just for your own individual subjects. We also do that in lessons. We send postcards and information home to the parents as well. We use class league tables to add some competition, and some of the classes really like that. And then in my own classroom, I've got an Educate ladder where I move their names up and down every other week, depending on the scores they've got. And at the bottom here, you can see how easy it is to compare, the percentages that the different classes again. So these are the year 11 English classes, and we can see how those classes are doing and how those classes are performing. And as a head of department, you would then be able to look at, actually, is there something you need to do for some of your classes? Do 11Y2 here actually needs some further intervention or support because of their lower scores. As a senior leader as well, this has been really useful because I'm able to do some analysis and I'm able to really easily see across the departments. So I can monitor it whole school. And the main thing that I found was useful when I was setting this up was having those constant conversations. So I'd send a little email saying, oh, great, I've seen that, we've got homework set for 16 classes this week. Well done to, 11X in geography. They've been doing really well. They got 95% average. And then I could email individuals and say, oh, I've noticed that you haven't set any homework this week. Have you set something alternative? Do you need any help with setting up Educake? And the Educate team are great. They did department CPDs with most of our departments so that the departments could see their own platforms in use. And we did that as part of our CPD time. So the English department and myself, we all sat down together and we were able to look at how it could be used in English and have those individual questions to talk about that as well. So you're able to see that the homework is being set, you're able to see that it's being completed. That's really easy. And you can sort of start to collect some impact data as well. So for example, up here, this is constantly being updated, the questions answered. So I can see how many questions have been answered by our students. And these questions here, if we hadn't been setting this, that those students would not have been completing those questions. Some of our students are less likely to engage in sort of paper-based work. So having this online platform that they can use on their phone, that they can use on their computers, they can go to our library after school and do it. It just means that, these are all gains. These are all extra revision and extra questions that our students are doing above what they're doing in their lessons. And that's fantastic for us. I put at the bottom here about the log on labels. So I've had an email literally this morning from one of our PE teachers who's doing an intervention session period 3. They've got a cover lesson. They need to be doing revision with some students. And so they've just said, can I just have their logons? So they have now got their logons. So they will be able to use that in that lesson to do revision. And it was as quick and easy as that. I didn't have to sit and set cover. I could just send them that work because they were in a computer room. More specifically to English and looking at as a class level rather than as a leader, it is really quick and easy to set. You can choose which questions you want. You can just set the whole bank of questions. I usually set the questions and I click the button that allows you to mix the order up for students so that if they're sat with their friends, they actually aren't answering the questions together. It asks the questions in a different order per kid. And there's no marking. And obviously at a time when, teachers' workload is so high, saving that time on that marking so that they can focus on the other things on their to-do list is really good. Saves on printing, so saving on money and no planning. So all in all, it's just saving so much time but still giving us really meaningful information and data that we can use and fantastic retrieval for our students. You can see here my class data at a glance. So this is one of my classes. I've taken the names out obviously on the side. So several things that I can do with this. I can see which students are struggling individually. Okay, so I can have a look at this student here and I can see that they've obviously got quite a lot wrong on this. This was about Christmas Carol and context. So I know that this student might need some extra work on that. When we're doing a revision session on that after school, I might contact their parents and say, that they really need to attend this revision session because I know that they are struggling with this area. When we have parents' evening, we're going to have different revision materials laid out on the tables. We're going to give them their Educate reports, which I'll show you in a moment, and then they go through and they collect the ones that they are going to commit to doing. So they've had that sort of little bit of power and that little bit of choice with their parents, hoping that will then make them engage a little bit better. I can see whole class misconceptions. So I can see, some of these questions, students have only got about 30%. Now, I'm not completely surprised by that because this was our first homework of this term. They hadn't revised the Christmas Carol since December last year. So, actually having those low scores is to be expected. But I can then pick out a couple of those and I can look at what was that question about. And that will then be my retrieval practice for the next lesson. And, you can look at misconceptions, you can look at topics. So I would definitely cover the Poor Law, Industrial Revolution and talk about raggy schools, which actually we hadn't covered at all. So that's sort of almost a prompt to make sure I cover that now before the exam. I would do that as a starter next lesson so that I can support them with that, because if a lot of them are getting it wrong, then that's something that they can improve. I do set a 70% minimum on my class. So if they get quite a lot wrong, they do have to redo the quiz until they get to 70%. And some of them like to keep redoing it until they get them all right as well. What I'm going to start doing this year is I'm going to make a sort of a bank of retrieval questions. So when I set myself these 3 questions, I can then add to that as we go through the year, and then perhaps termly I will provide a longer set of questions. It's got all of those ones so that they keep revisiting the errors that they've made. Looking looking at this is my year 11 class. And again, you would have the students' names here. So I can rank by their quiz average. So I can see which students are performing best all the way down to the ones that are really struggling. You can see that I've set quizzes on Macbeth and A Christmas Carol at the moment. You choose the names yourself, so you don't have to have anything as long as that. This is so that sort of I remember and they remember when it was set, and I can chase up the homework a bit easier. So we are doing English language in our lessons at the moment, but their PPE is going to be on A Christmas Carol and Macbeth. So actually this is helping me to cover that content without losing lesson time, because I'm never going to be able to get through English language, Macbeth and A Christmas Carol in their lessons. I quite often put this up. You can even take students' names off and just have sort of the class scores along the top. So I can celebrate instantly where the students are, doing really well, and I can add intervention, or I can contact home if students are getting really low scores. Finally, you've got the reports, which are great. So we've been using these in Parents' Evening last year, and we're going to be carrying on using them this year. And I've got these stuck in the students' books at intervals across the year, just as a way of them measuring their progress and seeing what it is that they're doing well at. So one of the things that it shows on their reports is which types of questions they're doing well in. So, is it recall, is it application, and then the AOs here. So they can see, first of all, how many questions they've answered in that, and is there one that they need to, do some more work on, but also how they're scoring. Okay, so this student's done pretty well. But if they had an area that was much lower than the others, then that would be the one that they could try and focus on. And they can set themselves questions as well to do that. And sometimes I set quizzes where they can choose which quiz they're going to answer that week. So I would, encourage them to choose the one that they were performing less well in. It means that the parents have got a good idea of what they need to be revising and what they need to be doing at home. And it also means that when other people come in and they're talking to the students and they're asking them, what is it that you're really doing well in, what's stopping you from achieving your target, they can straight away refer to this, and they know what it is that they're not doing very well. And they're not saying, oh, I'm not very good at talking about Bob Cratchit. They're talking about the actual skills that they're doing, which is great. So this is what the report looks like. I don't know if you've already seen these, but this is for one of my students in year 11. So you can see we've been doing literature, so you can see which literature they've been doing. They have to have completed a certain number of quizzes before this is created. So this isn't just from this year, that we did this last year as well. Like I said, you can see the skills that they've been covering, but then you also get this sort of what went well, even better with at the bottom here. So they can see which areas of each text they have done well in and they need to revise. When they do revision at mentor times, or if they have a study group that they are part of, then they know what they need to be revising. So even if I'm not there, they know what it is that they need to be looking at and revising, and that's really useful. Even if they're not doing it on Educake, Educake has helped to show them what it is that they need to be doing. So that's sort of my whistle-top tour to why we've been using Educake and how good it's been. The team are really great. The chat box on the website is fantastic. You can put in a comment or a question, and I've been certainly challenging them in the last year, asking lots of questions and asking about things that they could add to the app and to the site, and asking them for data and information. They've been fantastic at providing that. So I'd certainly recommend Educake to anyone. And if you wanted to contact me at all, then if you speak to the Educate team, I'm sure they can pass my details on, and I'd be happy to talk to you about setting it up in your schools. Thank you very much. Cheerio.